In May 2014, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the Turtles creators, spent some time walking through the streets of Dover, New Hampshire, together for the first time in 20 years. But how did these co-creators, who hadn't spent more than 2 minutes together in decades, end up here, enjoying each other's company like old friends? Join me as I dive into the story behind the Turtle Power documentary and how it made that reunion happen. The Turtle Power documentary of 2014 explored the chain of happy accidents that led to Turtlemania and the massive impact it had on pop culture and fans. Behind the film were 3 unlikely filmmakers from Goderich, Ontario: Isaac Elliott Fisher, Randall Lobb, and Mark Hussey. Randall Lobb, an English and media teacher with over 25 years of experience, had a strong foundation in storytelling and communication. He co-founded the grassroots production company Faux Pop Media alongside his business partner, Mark Hussey. Mark, with a background in music and technology, also performed in a band with his brothers called Boy in December, which would eventually provide the music for the documentary. Fresh out of film school in 2008, Isaac joined Randall and Mark in producing music videos and commercials. But it was Isaac's deep dive back into his childhood love of the Turtles that sparked the idea for a documentary, a chance to explore the untold history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Isaac sent an email to Mirage, pitching his idea of making a documentary about the history of TMNT. However, they told him they couldn't accept unsolicited projects. Still passionate about the idea, Isaac decided to move forward with a fan documentary anyway. One day, Isaac approached Randall and Mark and asked them if they wanted to partner with him in doing a TMNT documentary for the 25th anniversary. Randall, ever the naysayer and not a shellhead himself, immediately said no, thinking it wasn't a good idea. In hindsight, Randall's judgment of the Turtles had been wrong before. When he was younger, he found a copy of the original comic book. After going through its pages, he placed it back on the shelf, convinced that the idea would never catch on. Turtlemania proved him wrong years later. As this conversation unfolded, Mark listened in silence. Isaac pushed back on Randall's skepticism. Losing his stance a bit, Randall conceded that the project had potential. After all, it was rooted in geek culture, which he loved. But it seemed like too big of an undertaking for them, especially since they weren't professional filmmakers. That's when Mark broke the silence by saying, "Yet." Randall was probably softening up by now, but kept refusing, thinking that no one was going to let them do it, and they didn't even have any contacts. Ever the optimist, Isaac offered a contact phone number at Mirage. This was when Mark, impressed by Isaac's enthusiasm, said yes. Realizing that the existing fandom was still there, Randall gave up on his position and the documentary kicked off. By early 2009, they started interviewing fans and exploring how Turtlemania had shaped their lives. But after a few interviews, they began to worry that endless fan conversations wouldn't be enough to sustain the project. They needed something more, so Isaac suggested heading to New York Comic Con to try and connect with people from Mirage Studios. Expecting rejection, they reached out. But to their surprise, Mirage welcomed the idea. For Isaac, things were about to get surreal. In February 2009, Isaac headed to New York Comic Con with his cousin Rob, who had a video production company. Their plan was to film interviews in New York and then head up to Northampton for more controlled sessions with key figures from Mirage Studios, including Peter Laird. However, having both Kevin and Peter in the film was the goal. Isaac's first stroke of luck came when he casually bumped into the 25th anniversary tour bus. After chatting with the organizers, they gave him full access to the events and permission to film whatever he needed. Isaac went to the Turtles booth at the convention, where he met Gary Richardson, Mirage Studios' CEO. While there, he saw the heavy metal booth, which meant he had a chance to meet and perhaps persuade Kevin Eastman to be in the documentary. All he had to do was not look like a crazed shellhead, and more like a filmmaker. Back home, Randall was worried that they would end up having only one of the Turtle creators in the movie, and that Isaac would end up making a mistake. That is, until he got a text message from Isaac saying he was going out for drinks with Kevin. It was the confirmation they needed. Kevin Eastman was in, living up to his reputation as one of the nicest guys around. In Northampton, they interviewed Peter Laird, and then also spoke with Mirage legends Jim Lawson, Steve Levine, Michael Dooney, and Gary Richardson. Around this time, they started hoping to get both creators together on camera. But achieving that would have probably taken more time than they had. After all, they were planning to release the documentary by the end of the year. Looking ahead to March, the team strategized to maximize their trip to Los Angeles, where they'd interview Kevin and other key figures, including the voice cast of the 1987 animated series and Brian Henson. They were joined by Kurt Lobb as an additional camera operator. While interviewing Kevin, they asked him for a good place to stay while shooting. Kevin offered them something unexpected. He had an empty house for sale in the Hollywood Hills that belonged to Alex Van Halen at some point. He offered to let them stay there, and Randall quickly realized that crashing there on inflatable beds would save them hundreds on hotel costs. Once settled in the Hollywood Hills, the team got to work, lining up interviews with key figures. Kevin even joined in, helping them out. During this time, they reunited the 1987 voice cast for the first time since the show had been canceled, a reunion that included James Avery, who passed away in 2013 before the movie's release. By the time they'd interviewed Brian Henson, they realized they weren't doing a fan project anymore. Isaac also arranged an interview with Mark Friedman, and soon after, they met Kevin again in Northampton. Kevin opened up his vault of 25 years of TMNT history, including rare artifacts, VHS tapes, and even a 1993 Splinter statue. He then took them to an airport hangar full of even more Turtles treasures. It wasn't surprising that Kevin and Peter were so willing to help. After all, this kind of support is exactly what they would have wanted when they first started making comics. The filmmakers were struck by the generosity of everyone involved with the Turtles, and it made their journey even more meaningful. Next, Isaac went to the Tribeca event, where they lit up the Empire State Building in Turtle Green, held a martial arts demonstration, and showed the 1990 movie with Steve Barron and Kevin Eastman in the audience. Thanks to their relationship with the marketing company Peppercom, they filmed videos for the event and got to keep the footage, with all their expenses covered. While doing these videos, they finally realized they were going places others couldn't, and felt not only like they were on the inside of things, but also becoming a part of it. They later headed to San Diego Comic-Con 2009. While in the area, they met with John Handy, who gave them some precious B-roll material of the Playmates Toys designs. By the time they left San Diego, they were ready to start working on a trailer, and they were still hoping to release the movie by December of that year. However, after the Turtles were sold to Viacom, the project was delayed for 3 years for many different reasons. Most of this time was spent waiting for things to happen. For example, they hoped to access the behind-the-scenes of the Michael Bay movie, something that never happened. By 2012, the team resumed interviews, heading back to San Diego and meeting with figures like David Wise, Fred Wolf, Bobby Herbick, and more. They also promoted the documentary, continuing to gather material and support. After conducting nearly 90 interviews and gathering hours of additional footage, the documentary was still on hold, awaiting a distribution deal. They had been working on landing a deal with Paramount since October 2009. The filmmakers found themselves in a tricky situation when both the Weinstein Company and Paramount expressed interest in the documentary. The team wanted Paramount to take it, so they told Paramount that Weinstein was also interested, hoping to speed up negotiations and pressure Paramount into closing the deal. By November 2013, negotiations with Paramount were successful, and the contract was signed. The timing seemed perfect. With polarizing opinions surrounding the upcoming 2014 Michael Bay TMNT movie, releasing the documentary around the same time could be perceived as an olive branch to longtime fans. But some things were not completely clear. The filmmakers assumed that the film was going to come out around the same time as the Michael Bay film, but they heard nothing from Paramount for a long time. Then, out of the blue, Paramount contacted them with an urgent request. They needed the documentary delivered in just 14 days. At that point, the filmmakers only had a rough cut of the film, plus 220 hours of footage. With an enormous number of clearances, releases, and complex legal issues still unresolved, the team worked tirelessly, 16-hour days in a basement, to secure all the rights. Tracking down all the necessary stakeholders was no small feat, including locating the elusive Chinese producers of the original 1990 film. One major hurdle was the TMNT 1987 theme song, which would have cost $20,000 to use. To solve this, they secured recording rights instead, allowing them to produce a cover of the theme. With only 12 hours to complete it, Boy in December stepped up, with Isaac providing the spoken bits. As the documentary went into quality control, the filmmakers found the perfect opportunity to film Kevin and Peter together. The two were going to be signing together at a Rochester convention that week. Unfortunately, while they managed to film the reunion, they could only capture visual footage, with no audio permitted. However, the next day, Kevin and Peter were scheduled to sign at Shellback Artworks, Steve Levine's studio, near Dover, New Hampshire. Seizing the opportunity and acting as the common link, the filmmakers convinced Kevin and Peter to be filmed in Dover, where they walked through the now empty lot where Peter's house once stood, the place where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were first created. Although this was an emotional moment, it was too late to include the footage in the film. Instead, they added it as a very short after-credit scene. There is plenty of footage from that day in Dover, where Kevin and Peter shared candid conversations about their past. At one point, Peter told Kevin that this was the most time they spent together in the past 20 years. This unreleased footage was the inspiration for the upcoming follow-up project. More on that later. In July 2014, the team attended San Diego Comic-Con to promote the documentary, which was set to be released in August. But this time, the experience was different. They were no longer just the people behind the camera. They had become part of the TMNT legacy. Standing alongside Kevin Eastman, they presented footage to an audience of 600 in Hall H, cementing their place in Turtle history. The Turtle Power documentary was released on August 12, 2014, just 4 days after the new TMNT film hit theaters. The film resonated with long-term fans, offering a heartfelt look at the franchise's origins. However, some fans felt misled by the title, expecting a more comprehensive, definitive history of the Turtles that covered all their iterations. With limited access to key figures from various TMNT versions and a runtime of just 1 hour and 38 minutes, it was impossible for the filmmakers to fully live up to that expectation. Technicalities aside, the documentary revealed many hidden gems that were previously unknown. It provided a unique perspective, focusing not only on the creators, but also on the fans who kept the franchise alive. The emotional reunion of Kevin and Peter underscored the power of the Turtles' legacy to bring people together, a true turtle power, if you will. Despite the challenges, the filmmakers knew they had enough material for a sequel. Production resumed in 2016, taking advantage of the 2012 series being animated in Canada. They were able to delve deeply into the show's final season and explore the beginnings of Rise of the TMNT. Unfortunately, they lost their contacts at Nickelodeon after that, and no one there was interested in looking into the past. Filming eventually halted about 7 years ago, but the team was sitting on over 4 hours of unused footage, enough for an entire docu-series. Oddly enough, in 2019, the Nacelle Company produced an episode of The Toys That Made Us that felt almost like a shortened version of the Turtle Power documentary, including a Kevin and Peter reunion. The episode framed the reunion as if the 2014 event never happened. Interesting, isn't it? Unable to secure a distributor, partly due to the sheer amount of material, the filmmakers decided to follow in Kevin and Peter's footsteps. If the studios couldn't see the value in the project, they believed the fans would. So, they turned to crowdfunding, determined to deliver directly to the people who cared the most. Initially known as Turtle Power Volume 2, the film shifted its focus, moving away from the definitive history angle. The new title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Evolution, Mutation, and Reboot, reflects its new focus on how the franchise evolved with each new iteration. The result is an at least 4-hour-long documentary packed with bonus content, including a coffee table book, exclusive action figures, and hours of extra features. For fans of TMNT's history, the bonus material alone is worth the price. Highlights include the original voice cast reunion, the unedited Kevin and Peter reunion, early pitches to Playmates toys, unedited footage from the 1990 movie, new behind-the-scenes content from Secret of the Ooze, and exclusive footage from the making of the 2012 series. For action figure collectors, the campaign offers even more. The filmmakers brought in Steve Varner, the original sculptor of the Turtles toys, to create new, fully articulated figures, including a Playmate-style version of Kevin and Peter. Depending on the success of the campaign, even more figures will be produced, including the original wave of villains that never made it into the toy line. The toy aspect of the campaign was a natural fit for Isaac, who not only grew up loving the figures, but also became involved in toy documentaries. During the pandemic, Isaac furthered his passion by founding Village Toy Castle, a combination toy store, playground, workshop, and museum. The campaign reached its initial goal in just 2 days, but more backing is needed to unlock some of the most exciting stretch goals. One of these goals includes commentary from Steve Barron over raw footage from the 1990 film. The filmmakers uncovered 2/3 of the movie's raw dailies, which include unedited scenes, bloopers, and outtakes. Apart from the established campaign tiers, fans can choose from a variety of add-ons available a la carte. While there may be some reused footage from Turtle Power, the filmmakers have promised that the vast majority of this new documentary will consist of never-before-seen material. When their journey started, Isaac, Randall, and Mark were outsiders, looking into a world that seemed out of reach. They didn't have Hollywood budgets, connections, or a built-in platform. What they did have was passion, a deep respect for the Turtles, and the ambition to tell a story that hadn't been told before. A key moment in this journey came when they realized they weren't just documenting the history of the TMNT, they were becoming part of it. They had transitioned from fans with cameras to curators of the Turtles' legacy. The emotional climax of their journey happened when they succeeded in getting Kevin and Peter together, talking on camera for the first time in years. It was the perfect culmination of this long chain of happy accidents. Isaac, Randall, and Mark took on a Promethean quest to provide fans with unprecedented access to the hidden history of the TMNT franchise. Over the course of 15 years, they assembled more than 220 hours of footage, unearthing pieces of Turtle history that even the most die-hard fans had never seen. With their new documentary, they're sharing the fire of knowledge with the fans, shining a light on the people who made the franchise what it is today. If you're interested in the new documentary and all the bonus features, check out the Kickstarter link in the description to choose your preferred bundle. The campaign ends on October 14th, so don't let this opportunity slip by. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.